Good morning, Denise Dryden here. I'm in Spokane, Washington, about halfway through my move from Whitefish, Montana to Bainbridge Island. So I've been up there for about a year now, went back and got all my stuff and thought it was time to sort of start making a different life, create a different life in Bainbridge, okay? Today I want to talk about fear, guilt, and shame. And it's kind of like this trifecta, and because it's sort of been a nostalgic event going through Montana and whatnot, and I've been doing some interesting work, I wanted to share it with you. So let me start with about a little over a year ago, I ended a really significant relationship. In last October, I moved to Bainbridge Island to take a 6-month sabbatical to see what it felt like to live next to the ocean, or to the sound. And in September, my mother passed. And, she was 86. She had led a full life. Yet, we were estranged. We were not the way that I had hoped we would be when she passed. And so, I want to take those 3 events, and then I want to sort of add to it this political climate and the urgency that we seem to be holding in our bodies. And there's this tension. And I was thinking back historically over all of the different times when there's been this kind of tension present. And, I remember growing up with Vietnam, Bay of Pigs, some of that, those really big events. And then there was 9/11. And outside of that, I haven't recognized as much physical tension on our planet as there is right now. And it sucks, really sucks. And when we have this kind of tension, it shows up in our bodies, shows up in our relationships, it shows up in our parenting, it shows up in the way that we love. And so I thought I would bring into the discussion today the idea about fear, guilt, and shame. And I call them like that trifecta. I've been working with a friend of mine, Bill Kale, and we've been playing with these 3, and I thought I would share with you what's going on. So going into the deep work on fear, guilt, and shame, this is something that I started to do in October to sort of address my mother, address change, address almost being 60, and that there's these big things coming up in the world for me, and it's time to sort of look at where do I stand on fear, guilt, and shame. So what I know is that the trifecta, it limits life, and that it's interconnected with our body, and that they're all present, and when they're present, that they kind of run the show. So what I did was I was invited by Bill Kale, and he is a Tibetan bowl master healer, and I will put a link to his site in the comments line of this Facebook Live so that you can access him if it's something that you want. Worked over the phone with him for 3 2-hour sessions, one on each topic, a little less than a week apart. And oh my God, I had no idea what I was getting myself into. So so I sort of took the proverbial glove and said, it's time to work on these 3, and I threw it in there and said, let's go. And this is what I did. So I booked a day with Bill and a time. First one was for fear, and it was about 3 or 4 days out. And then I put a blank piece of paper, pad with a pen, out and put fear in the middle of it. And then we'd go around, look at my face, we'd go around and write different thoughts about it, different experiences, different concepts, gathered examples of feelings and issues, and then captured them on the paper. And because this kind of stuff that I do on Sundays, I have a regular routine of sitting down with this Saturday night and then also Sunday morning, is that I know how to process information. So what the night before that I met with Bill, I sat down with fear and sort of outlined, where does it reside in my body? How pervasive is it? What does it really feel like? And then in the morning I got on the phone with Bill, and it was life-changing. So this is what I learned. Fear is mental, physical, and emotional, and it's a mess because they're all intertwined. It's about thoughts. It's the way we run our thoughts about if this happens, then that happens. If this happens, then that happens. And it usually comes from a base of context of something that we've experienced, or something we've read, or something that we've seen somebody else do, right? So we have a mental story that we run over and over in our body. And it's worries of the past that are held in the body, and there's a low level of agitation. What I didn't realize was that just under the surface there was this static, like, and it had been there my whole life. It affects everything. It shapes emotions, choices, actions, and that mental static held in the body then becomes acted on in all of my choices and everything I do. So I went through that. The second one, guilt. It's emotionally charged mental thoughts. So the first one is like mental thoughts in the body with some emotions that stir that up. Guilt is an emotional issue charged around thoughts. The things that I've done, the things that I said, the choices I made, how I felt about something, the actions I took myself, the actions that I made against others. So I found that I had some guilt in there, some guilt about being a parent, some guilt about my choices. And it's relentless, and it's always about the actions, what I did, what I perceived I did, how bad that was, or whatever, right? And then so it's a physical act, and then it is all of the emotional burdens of what happened around that. The third one is shame. Shame are the beliefs that I hold in my body, the beliefs any of us hold in our body. These are the deep voices of how you add up all these events, of what you've created, the choices that you've made, and the stories that you believe about them. So it isn't necessarily real. It is about our belief system, and then we armor all of these protections around us so that no one can see them or feel them or push on them and hurt them the way that we do, because we already have our big stories in our head, right? So what we do is we protect ourselves. And so shame, and I was also on the drive out to Montana listening to Brene Brown's new book, Dare to Lead, which is phenomenal. And I will do some more work on those different kinds of ways that she has identified the armor, the shame armor, and what it looks like. But knowing that shame is so deep and sticky and pervasive, and it's about what we actually believe about ourselves. So fear, guilt, and shame, these are passed on from generation to generation. We make choices about how we raise our children based on our fears. We may become over-involved in protecting our children from our own choices because we know the cost, which is our guilt. And we inadvertently shape our child's education, our friends, our directions into our own adulthood, their directions into their adulthood, based on these stories. So knowing that we put a track or a paradigm on ourselves, and then we actually impress it on our children because of our own fears, guilts, and beliefs, right? That we end up in some way, shape, or form imposing or even subjugating ourselves onto the next generation. So how do we stop this? Like, how do we stop passing down the pains of the parents? That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to release that. And I can only tell you that in less than a week and a half, having worked on all three of those, it was a fabulous freeing and releasing moment. And it stayed with me, and it's noticeable to those who know me really well. So what you can do to release this hold of this trifecta is you can go after it yourself, or you can give Bill a call. His website is beyondallsound.com, and I will tell you it's magnificent. So check him out. Check out your own work on fear, guilt, and shame. And then if you want some help on that, or you want to know how to put things on a piece of paper and capture what it is so that you can prepare for that kind of work or do it yourself, let me know. that's also some of the stuff that I can help you with. My name is Denise Dryden. You can find me on DeniseDrydenCoaching.com, and have a lovely Sunday. And I have a U-Haul with my Subaru on the back of a car transport in about 4 more hours over 1 more pass, and then I'll be back in Washington. So wish me luck. Take care. Bye-bye.